So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Sid, for being here today. So this meeting is about how we can somehow integrate. So there is a lot of curiosity, also my personal curiosity, about how we can integrate virtual reality within this context. And I hope I wish really to be nourished by your wisdom, Sid. Yeah. So Sid is someone that has initiated somehow this, based on his experience in practicing mindfulness and yoga, how to share these benefits through virtual reality. And yeah, the floor is yours. And I hope we will enjoy this time together. And I believe we will have also some time for question and answer, right? That's the first, maybe we can allow Sid to present themselves and yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's definitely I'm feeling grateful that there's communities out there who are so deeply rooted in this wisdom and want to do everything in their capacity to not just improve access, but help more people understand the power of just being in this place and space of wisdom through mindfulness. So thank you for all the work that you and your team does. Yeah, as a quick background, you know, I was born and raised in India, and so surrounded by a lot of spirituality, uh, mostly inclined on the religious side of things. And so I think my entry into mindfulness didn't really happen until much later in life. I was asking a lot of questions growing up to my family and to my spiritual gurus and teachers, and didn't feel like I got convincing answers. So I kind of read a lot of books on the topics of spirituality, but at the same time, I started picking up a lot of books on Western science, and that provided a lot of answers. It provided data, it provided meaning, it provided a lot of aspects, right? That I was my analytical brain, engineer brain, at that point time was craving. Um, so I spent the last decade or so, 2007 is when I came to the US for for an engineering degree and a master's program, and did that, for a bit, and then worked for different companies doing a lot of work in technology, um, and fundamentally rooted in the practice of like Western medicine. If it cannot be proven, it's not fundamentally real. And I now realize that was an incorrect assumption because I've now come to the conclusion that science is nothing more, in my opinion, than a systematic study of spirituality. And obviously, the term spirituality can be defined in many ways, in a religious lens or non-religious lens, but in every context you're in, the meaning of spirituality can change. But I think for me, fundamentally, this idea of being mindful aligns very perfectly with being aligned with your true ideal life purpose, and having that sense of clarity that comes with that. I think it's something that I have definitely benefited from, and I took it upon myself to then use this as an opportunity to help other people also tap into this deep well of wisdom, deep level of awareness that we all have within us. Um, and I think the inception of delivering these interventions through virtual reality really came about from my own personal problem. My father had passed away due to cancer a few years ago, and witnessing his journey going through the disease really uh, it moved me. I think watching him go through the pain and the suffering that he wasn't able to understand for sure, and I was trying to understand it, provided me the much needed context. So what I did at that time when he was going through his treatments and sessions is I actually built a lot of 2D video playlists for him on from YouTube or any of these other resources, and provided him links to these resources. And while he did enjoy using them, he didn't it didn't bring him um, out of his suffering to a place where he could just temporarily, you know, just be in a better place. And so I think that was the inception point that this can be done in a much better way. And the whole idea behind this is if you think about how you and I and all of us humans interact with the world today, we interact with the world in 3D. We don't interact with the world in 2D. Everything from grabbing a pen or a cup or a glasses or whatever, it's happening in full 3D. So human brain functions in 3D. It functions very well in 3D. I mean, that's and so I think what I thought about was what if we help people, be in their own space in their own houses, but find themselves, give them the ability to kind of put themselves in these scenarios where they can be embodied into a virtual uh, environment where we can deliver a lot of therapeutic interventions like mindfulness and all of the other ones that we're also using in a way that is more engaging and more tactile. And so that's where this whole, thing began in my journey. And I think we've done a phenomenal job at trying to stay true to the practice of mindfulness without, without trying to like change its deeper meaning. Yeah, so that's been my journey so far. We're definitely focusing on clinical validation of the interventions that we're putting out there. Um, but VR for us is basically just another method of delivering uh, beautiful experiences. I think if you think about how mindfulness was delivered back in 1970s, especially John Kabat-Zinn at the UMass Memorial Health Center, um, to how it was delivered in the early 2000s, to how it was delivered in the last decade, to how it will be delivered in the next decade. Things are going to progress. And I think as a group, um, in my opinion, we need to understand how this progression is going to happen because it is going to happen. It is inevitable. And in a lot of ways, it can be beneficial because it can bring a lot more people into the fold and practice these techniques in a way that works for them. Uh, we don't want, at least I don't want personally, to for this art to be lost along this progression. Yeah. So my passion is to bring these uh, novel interventions in a way that is much more engaging and meaningful for people. And we're just getting started. I think there's a lot more ways for us to go, but we're learning every single day. We're trying to be better every single day. And yeah, ultimately our mission is still the same, which is how do we get people to just be more in wisdom and not react to the small things or the big things as much, because we all know what happens when we are constantly finding ourselves in the domain of doing, I guess, as John would say, and just finding ourselves reacting to everything that comes our way, right? So, yeah. So that's a little bit of a background about me and why. So,
Thank you so much, Sid. My curiosity is just around how is this happening? Yeah. So as we know, mindfulness is not just about having good experiences, but it's about, yeah, living with wisdom around the concept of conditionality and impermanence. And, these are very Buddhist terms indeed. But
yeah.
yeah, how is this working with virtual? I was talking with Stasi before. We were really, bit curious about how this is really working. Yeah, how is
Yeah.
your vision of that?
Yeah. So our vision is to create these experiences that you may describe to somebody, but you cannot actually articulate in a 2D world. So, for example, you mentioned conditioning. One of the core tenets, I guess, of just general, you know, spirituality, but also Buddhism and mindfulness is this that we are all conditioned. We're all just born into condition, right? There's certain conditions that we're grandfathered in with, like the places that we're born in and the culture and the people that we're surrounded with. But then there's certain conditions that we ourselves choose to add onto our being. And the whole idea here is that life is not about, in my opinion at least, it's not about adding more layers. It's about removing layers so you can truly identify the thing that exists within you. And so in VR, the way we potentially can represent this, and this is again not out there yet, but this is a design phase that we're testing, is how when somebody puts on the VR headset, we bring them into this beautiful context. And it doesn't have to be always nature or mountains or water or anything. It can be something as simple as just a very complete, you know, dark, not in the dark sense, but like, you know, a space that they can interact with. And then we can showcase them, their own bodies in front of a mirror in VR. Now, when I say the term mirror in VR, obviously it's not a real mirror, it's a digital mirror. But as the person moves their hands, the reflection in the mirror also moves their hands. So suddenly now the brain starts to make a connection that that digital persona that I can see in the mirror is me. And the brain is really good at that. And so now suddenly you have this an existence of you outside of you that then you can use because it's full 3D, and then you can use as a way to run certain um, you know uh, designs or experiences, I guess that was the term I'm looking for, to help the person go through certain practices of actually unconditioning, not just in mind, but also through touch. You know, maybe we can have a guided session where somebody is guiding the person to be like, you know, let's kind of look at all these things that are around you on this avatar. You know, why don't we kind of just go through a session and maybe we breathe into these conditionings that, you know, you consciously or unconsciously would have, you know, put together on you, and then let's slowly remove them and see how it feels, right? And you slowly just kind of weave them out. And that experience, when you actually go through it in VR, is very remarkable. And we've run some tests on this. It's like your brain experiences a moment of nothingness. And it's a very powerful state because you truly see you know the your true nature is I guess what I can say. And then you can piece things together how you want it to be, right? So I think that's how we, just one example of how we're kind of designing certain experiences that allow you to experience you know, things that you cannot actually even do in real life because it's just not possible. Um, and apart from this, we also have the regular stuff like, you know, how do we get you to practice some deep, relaxing breathing or a guided session where you have the audio, but you also have a video, and not like a 2D video, but like a full 3D video. You might be on a mountaintop in Switzerland, you know, just being there with nature, just observing the wind and the flowing of the water, just kind of being there. So I think those are the kinds of things that we're creating.
Yeah, so my mind was jumping into, is it possible then to reprogram traumas or things that happened in the past that are conditioning they're triggering my reaction? Is that a bit what's
Absolutely.
happening?
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, because I I believe this, and I think science has, many studies have proven this, that anxiety, depression, and a lot of other mental health conditions are not conditions themselves. They're actually symptoms of an underlying condition.
Yeah.
And Western society is so good at treating symptoms, but not the underlying cause. And the reality is, medication and a lot of Western way approaches are not helping. There was a recent article I read on time.com that literally said that America has reached peak mental health therapy, and yet our mental health continues to decline. We have reached more access to mental health providers, easier access to mental health providers, better tools available, and yet we see continuing decline in mental well-being. And I think there's a reason for this. And I think the reason is that we're just treating the symptoms. We're not going down to the cause. So I think these what we call experiential well-being tools will allow people to actually get below the topical layers in a safe space. Because I think one of the uh, first things that your body and your brain might respond is by not feeling safe when you're in, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
safety is very essential, and the setting and the context is just as important. So yeah, I absolutely believe that by developing a protocol, we can actually be with somebody and help them go down and beneath these layers and perhaps extract out these old conditioning and trauma responses and stress responses and rewire some of these patterns that they've been programs that they've been operating from for life. That's very
Mm.
much possible, and that's possible in a way that is not just audio or visual, but kinesthetic. And I think when you engage multiple senses of your being and experience something, you're going to remember that. You're not going to forget that.
Mm.
So I think that's that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. Just raising the question around integrity and yeah, because this is quite something, being able to manipulate somebody else's brain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think
absolutely.
what's interesting is if you really think about every minute, every interaction we have, whether that's with somebody or with nature or with our environment, we are uh, modifying our brains, right? Uh, and um, one of the examples I can use is social media, right? I mean, social media has found a way to program our brains without our consent, and they're doing it in ways that are so, uh, in a lot of ways, so manipulative. Uh, and most people don't know that. Most people are not aware of the fact that my decisions are not mine. My decisions are being driven by a wave of conditioning that has an impact on me. To give you an example, um, I my wife and I, we heard about this movie that recently came out a couple of months ago, Oppenheimer, right? Everybody was talking about it. And for some reason, I didn't feel inclined to go to the theater and watch the movie. And, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've heard good things, but, I'm not interested. But wave after wave, everybody was talking about it. My social media, my friends, my family members. And so suddenly something inside my brain, I'm like, well, maybe I should go see this movie. And we paid a pretty price and we saw the movie. Uh, did not like it, not that I'm judging here, but we did not enjoy it. And I'm like, and I kind of contemplated about this. How did somebody who didn't want to go see this movie, was influenced to go see this movie? And I backtracked all the conversations I had about this movie with my friends, or reading just a random article. And I noticed that, wow, I was influenced in such a way that I took this behavior of going and paying and watching this movie. I know it's a simple example of a behavior change that didn't I didn't initiate myself. It was initiated by a third party. But yeah, I think our brains are learning, and I think the best in adapting and being programmed all the day live long. And I think the best thing we can do as builders of technology, good technology, I like to call ourselves, is to use this for a positive, in a positive way. What I mean by that is helping people understand that they do have the power to be mindfully aware, to not be influenced by certain things that are happening in and around their environment. Um, yeah, so I think for us, it's about giving sort of a little bit of that sense of agency back to the user, so that they know that the power resides within them. Everything that they need is within them. We're just helping them effectively navigate to the parts within them, the deepest parts of these awareness within them, so they can learn to trust that part of them, and then operate from that place versus operate from a place of conditioning.
Thank you so much. And I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads in, in the small circle. So I would like to open the space. And if you have questions or if you've been inspired by Sid sharing, what is your mind? Where are you going with all this sharing? I open already the space, unless Sid, you have another plan. But maybe,
No, I'm absolutely excited to hear questions or just general thoughts.
yeah, Cassia, please.
Thank you very much, Sid, for this. I have a lot of questions, but I have to choose, so I have chosen 3 probably. When you speak about the, let's call it project, because you said it's on the design phase, you say we, and who you mean by we?
Yeah, so by we, I mean me and our team at Nova Being. So we have we have
What's the
3.
name of the company?
Oh, the name of the company is Novo Being. So
Ah,
NOVOBEING, and effectively translates to a new way of being.
mm,
Yeah, we went through a rebrand. We used to be called Rocket VR. Now we're called Novo Being.
okay. And you're working together on this. Very technical question. Are you aiming at creating a program, a software, something that we can maybe use via internet, or an app? What is it?
Yes. So it will be an app that will be delivered through a VR headset. So not through your phone.
Not.
You'll have to have a VR headset to access this app. And so once you have access to a device and you have access to the app, just like on your phone, you can access all the content that we're
Okay. So
building.
you have to have device that and then you can use the software. Okay. You describe this landscape and what happens with our mind when we are in it, what can happen. And my question is, does using this equipment requires that we have any kind of prior experience in meditation, or anyone could and is recommended to use it?
Yes, anyone can use it. I think the most advanced meditators, I've talked to a lot of them, and there are 2 camps of advanced meditators I've learned. There's one camp that is completely against technology, and there's one camp that is very supportive of technology, just like a lot of things in life. Again, we are just, creating stuff that resonates with people, right? Because the way we see it is, if we don't come up with better tools to help people practice their sessions, there's a gap. There'll always be a gap, and that gap will be readily filled, in my opinion, by parties that in a lot of ways have caused a lot of these issues. Without naming names, there's pharma companies ready to jump in and fill any of the gaps. There's just distraction companies, right? Like there's always companies with a lot of resources will always find a way to get people's attention into into their product, right? It's almost like our attention is being harvested by companies now. And so yeah, for us, the app can work, for beginner users, absolutely. In fact, for beginner users, it's absolutely welcome. Like they love using it just because they have never actually meditated, and they really find it hard to practice any kind of meditation, not just mindfulness. And this provides them with a pathway. It also works for some of these intermediate level users who wanting to enhance their experience or take it to the next level.
Okay, last question, because in this description, I don't know if I understood correctly, you can you can correct me if it was not. The person can somehow reach a kind of meditative state without meditating only by being manipulated, let's use this word, by virtual reality experience. Is it so?
I would reframe that sentence a little bit. Yes, you certainly can reach a meditative state, and again, that's subjective. You know, some people would call the feeling of absolute peace and absolute quietness and absolute nothingness as a state of meditation. But for some people, it just might be, oh, I'm feeling very relaxed. I'm less stressed. You know, so it depends on the context and who you're talking to. But yes, we have seen experiences where people have found a profound sense of relaxation without exerting, a lot of effort that might typically be required for uh, a, a novice meditator
Mm,
using these methods. I think the way we kind of see it as is think about a moment in your life where you were doing something that wasn't um, an actual practice of meditation. Let's say you were cooking your favorite meal, or you were walking the dog, or you were in the park, or you were by the water,
mhm,
and 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 in these moments you just found that your brain, your mind, all the all the ping ponging that happens in our minds just stopped.
mhm,
Technically, you're experiencing a meditative moment in these
mhm.
moments.
That's it.
Especially for me personally, when I go sit next to an ocean, I can just sit there sometimes for an hour or two without a single thought, just be completely absorbed in everything that's coming.
Mhm,
And that's a beautiful meditation, right? So I
mhm,
think, yeah, in a lot of ways, this can be looked at as a little bit like that, um,
mhm,
in informal ways to reach meditative states, but also we have formal practices.
mhm. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Those are great questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kasia, for your input. I don't know if there are others that are inspired to ask questions or dissipate doubts or simply sharing your personal curiosity. Yeah, Magdalena, please.
I must admit I'm a little bit surprised. I never thought about virtual reality and meditation and being driven with the technology visually and kinesthetically in a space which is created by my mind or by the technology. I didn't understand really. Is this what technology creates as a vision, let's say? Is it created by the processes of my mind, or is it something that is prepared for me before? How this interact with what is going on in my mind?
Yeah, very good question. So today, in the in 2023, a lot of the work that we've put out there is not customized to what's already happening in your mind. It is just like an app like Calm or Headspace on your phone or Insight Timer, any of these apps you might be familiar with, do today, which is they provide you with content and information and knowledge and wisdom for you to deepen your practice, of being mindful or just practicing meditations. So that's where we are today. But I don't know if you've been noticing what's happening with a lot of AI, technologies like AI and stuff. A lot of people obviously are scared, rightfully so, with AI. Um, and there's certainly a lot to be scared about, but there's also a lot to look forward to. I think anytime a new piece of technology emerges out of nowhere, at least it feels that it emerged out of nowhere, most people are threatened by it. To compare AI to nuclear technology when it first came out, the whole world was threatened. And yet today we see entire cities being powered by nuclear power. So I think there's certainly technology has always, two sides to it. So I where I'm going with this is in the future, and I don't think we're going to be there anytime soon. I think it'll probably take a few years for us to get there. But I do fundamentally believe that in the future, there will be systems that will be technology based that will basically understand your current state of mind and then tell you that, hey, Magdalena, seems like you're currently experiencing, a low energetic state. Um, would you like to be in that state, or would you like to shift it or change it? And there will be an experience designed specifically for you, knowing your prior, personalized, especially explicitly for you, based on the music, that you might enjoy, the sounds that you might enjoy, the locations you might enjoy, and so on and so forth. We're not there yet, but believe it or not, it is coming. And and of course, the first thing that people might think about is, oh my God, this is going to be basically remove all meaning of what it means to be mindful. And yes, I agree to a lot of way. In a lot of ways, it might extract the true meaning of what it means to develop self-awareness or just awareness in general. Um, yeah,
What comes to me when I'm meditating, I'm in a very private, let's say, safe place. It's my place. But if I'm meditating together with a with the algorithm, which is created to do something to me, what I need, am I really in a safe place? I don't know. Maybe I don't understand, but I'm really.
yeah, no, it's
Am I in a safe place? Is it? Um, I know it's pretty much shocking that you can be connected to practically to a device, to an algorithm that is so powerful that can in a second make I don't know, a model that suits me so much that I can really be, of course, I'm going. And what if I'm a really vulnerable person? I have no, I can go. It becomes me. And what is this? What is becomes me?
yeah.
Which is much
Well,
more clever than my brain can ever be.
yeah, absolutely, and I think that is what we want to help people understand, is to ask these fundamental questions. What are you? Uh,
Yeah, that is my question. You said in one moment, this is something that will make you free, make you to come to real you and know that your choice is your choice. And I don't really get that. How in this way I can really become to this place when I'm sure that my choice is my choice. I know now that I'm, what's the English word, uh, that all my experiences, which I didn't choose, make me what I am. I just, I'm not blank space. No one can beat that. But here is more powerful coming into my mind. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
little
no,
bit shocked because I hear for this stuff for the first time.
yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people who are shocked, a lot of people who are hearing this for the first time, and a lot of people uh will never be okay with this. And that's a fact. It is absolutely a fact. It's one of these things, right? I still remember the day when smartphones came out. I think what 2007, 2008. And I was having a conversation with my mom, and she's like, "Oh, I'm never gonna switch to touchscreen phones. That's just a massive screen in front of me. Like, no, I just I like my keypad phone, right?" And she stuck with her keypad phone for a while until the company that was providing her services no longer supported her device. She had no choice but to upgrade. She had no choice but to learn. She had no choice but to adapt. And or she could, switch to a different provider or that still supported her old phone. And I think in a lot of ways, I actually ask this question myself all the time. When does this ever end? When can we ever have a time in our lives where technology can just stop or pause its evolution because it just all seems to be going so fast, right? Um, and the reality is, unfortunately, it never will stop. Uh, it has not stopped for hundreds of years. And what we define as technology today obviously looks and feels a lot different. You know, technology, when people use the word technology today, the thing that pops in your head is like, okay, electronics, devices, chips, etc. But hundreds of years ago, there was still technology. A couple hundred years ago, there was still technology. It's just that they didn't call it technology; they just called it whatever, right? Like I was born and raised in India, so I was surrounded by a lot of yogic practices. Kriya yoga, pranayama. I call all these things technology. These were pranayama, which is breathing, breath work. It was the technology of that time. It provided people, it gave people a way to, you know, at that time, I don't know what their goal was at that time, but now I practice breath work pretty much on a daily basis. And I know for a fact that my nervous system is so much more regulated than ever before and much more calm and collected than ever before. And so I think the key thing is practice. How do we get people to practice? How do we get people to practice these skills on a daily basis? Because that's when it ultimately boils down to. You can be learning all kinds of mindfulness in different ways through technology or without technology. But ultimately, if you don't practice these skills, they're not going to benefit you. It's like knowing about a salad and knowing that it's good for you and not eating it, right? Um, or eating a salad once and then hoping that for the rest of the week you can eat something, from a freezer, uh, and you'll still be healthy. So I think in a lot of ways, it is challenging, uh, but there are cohorts of people out there who um, are not practicing, and I think our goal is to how do we get people to actually practice? How do we get people to, you know, get on this get on this path, which is really the pathless path. Get on this path and just experience for themselves what it feels like so that eventually they don't have to rely on our technology because our goal is not to create dependency. The analogy I use all the time, and it resonates with a lot of people, is when you first learn how to ride a bike, if I attach these these support wheels on your bike, you're more likely to practice how to learn how to ride a bike. And then over time, I can remove the wheels, and now you're riding on your own. That's kind of the way we see ourselves, is we are providing people with these supportive wheels to practice. And then once they get to a certain point in their journey, they can they don't have to use us. We don't want them. In fact, I tell my team all the time, like we don't want people to use our program or headset or app for the rest of their life. We just want them to use it enough so that they can have the skill set, develop it, especially for the novice users who are not learning, um, and then eventually find their own practice and stick to that. So I don't know if I answered your question, Magdalena, but happy to jump in.
I don't know, but thank you. My mind is too confused with all this new. But I have a, I don't know. I'm really older generation, and I see how, let's say, this technology brought me so many opportunities that I wouldn't ever have, because I'm living in a small country in a place which is really small. So I do love technology in this day, but all these further things make me a little bit scared. But that's me.
Yeah. No,
Okay, thank
it's
you,
every,
thank you.
yeah, of course. No, it's you have every, uh, yeah, you're absolutely right. There, like I said, a lot of people are scared with how, and and if you really think, go beneath that feeling of fear, right? And if you continue to go deeper, there are some answers that will come to you, I'm sure. Uh, what are you ultimately scared of, right? Uh, because a lot of people ask, okay, a lot of people have told me, well, I'm afraid that the technology is going to take my job away. I'm afraid that technology is going to take my, you know, years of practice away. I'm afraid, this is, they're basically afraid of something happening in their life as a result of this, right? They're not directly afraid of the thing itself. They're afraid of what the thing might do to them in their life. And so I think it just gives us a wonderful opportunity to kind of go deeper into that fear and just ask more questions to really get inside and really understand ultimately, uh, what is it that drives me towards this feeling. So,
But if this thing is interacting with my mind, and this thing is not a human being, and this thing is so much clever than I ever could be, because it learns. It is not him or she, or it is not alive, and it learns in a way I can't, because I'm biological thing.
yes, yes,
So where can it where I'm afraid of this.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and you absolutely have, like I said, you're right, because it's hard. When I told my mom, my father passed away in 2015. When I told my mom that, mom, in the next, maybe not even, I want to say, 5 years. I'm thinking it might be less. It'll definitely be 5 years. You will be able to see a 3D version of dad who's passed away, and this 3D version will look, whether you're watching him through a headset or watching him through a hologram or what may be, this 3D person might actually interact with you, and it will be intelligent. So then we had a pretty good discussion about this topic, and the questions were phenomenal. The question was, well, then what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to have consciousness? What does it mean to have just, I'm not, I don't want to use the word intelligence because that's relative, but what does it mean to be human? And I think that's the big thing that we're all, you know, worried about. And I think I lean more on the optimistic side of things for sure, because I've always seen time and time again technological evolution, and I've seen technological revolution. And both of these evolution pathways or revolution pathways have happened outside of my consent. Even if I didn't want that to happen, it has happened, because the person, or the consciousness who came up with this idea in the first place, you don't know what their contextual situation is like. So this is an example I use in a lot of my talks, which is, let's take an example of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook back when he was a student at Harvard, didn't have a lot of friends, but wanted to be social. He wanted to be popular, but he didn't because he and this is a fact, he was limited socially, you know, his social skills were not as well developed. So he created this technology, which we now know as Facebook, and you know how that has become. And because to solve his own problem, which is I have this insecurity and I want to solve it through something. So he solved it for himself in his own university at Harvard. Then it spread to other universities. Then it spread to more universities. Then it spread to colleges and schools. Then it spread to community and people. And now it spread to everyone. And now Facebook bought Instagram and WhatsApp and all these other companies. And so if you really think about it, one person's insecurity or a lack of ability to maybe be social resulted in all of this happening in our lifetime in just in the last 12, 13, 15 years. And and so put yourselves back in this person's mind for a moment, way back in 2004, 2005, when he was a student and created Facebook and the first version of Facebook. And if you think about why he created this, because of all the conditioning that he experienced as a childhood, in his childhood, that led him to be this insecure person to create this, right? Well, what happened to all of these conditions that resulted in Mark being insecure? Where did they come from? So I think there's a lot of things that are at play that are beyond understanding, right? Like I'm talking to you right now through my phone. There's so many things that had to come into place together at the right time to make this conversation happen, right? I'm here all the way in Boston, and so I think sometimes I'm in awe at the fact that all this exists and it allows us to do things that were never done possible before. But as you said, all of these things have a byproduct, uh, you know, side effects, you can call it. And in this forever always connected world of social media and technology, a lot of the side effects are actually isolation. A lot of people they have 12,000 friends on Facebook, and yet they're isolated. And that's just the reality of the world. So I think what we are hoping to do is to help people become, find that comfort within themselves, find that safety within themselves, knowing the fact that this life that they have, when and if it ends, whatever stage or time, that's not the end of life itself, right? It's going to go on. And I think that's the perspective I carry with me, because what's the ultimate fear? It's the fear of death, right? Ultimately, what it really comes down to, in my opinion at least, all the fears are encompassed under this big fear of death. And if you're not afraid of that anymore, then you're free. And I certainly went through a phase of life where I used to carry around a fear, not necessarily a fear of death, but just a fear of whatever, right? And I guess it was rooted in a fear of death. And now I don't carry that with me anymore, because I know even if after my life ends, my life is not, things are still going to continue. The impact that I'm making now will still continue and live on. And I think that expanded sense of belonging that I carry with me provides me a sense of immense comfort. And I think that's the practice that at least I sometimes engage in more often than not. So I know we kind of went a lot of meta in our conversations, but I hope it just provided some perspective and context.
I see there is another question. I'm happy you are a human being, and that I can believe that.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you, Sid. Yeah, I see 2 hands since a while. Thank you for this understanding. And
Yeah.
yes, also a teacher of mine once said, ultimately, all humans are just afraid of dying alone under a bridge. You know, when we boil it down.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I pass the word to Stasi, who was there since a while, and welcome Katerina from Paris. From Paris.
Okay, thank you. Wow, it's really a great conversation. My mind now is like fireworks on New Year's Eve. Woo! And I have a lot of comments and questions for everything that Facebook and Mark and as well the using like the helping wheels. I was thinking that your product or the project that doing Sid is exactly like that, and it was in the beginning I was intending to ask the question: does it have to do in the logic of it with bio and neurofeedback, because it's based on, again, on you start with that and your brain changes a little bit, your mind changes, it learns and learns stuff, and then you of course go away at some point. You don't have it as a long intervention. That was my first question. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
continue.
Sure. Yeah. So I think we certainly can incorporate neurofeedback or biofeedback into our solutions. Uh, we have plans to do that. That means if you have one of these smart watches and whatnot that measure your heart rate and heart rate variability, you'll be able to effectively connect these sensors to, and you don't have to do the actual connection. It'll just happen through some settings. Um, and yeah, you'll be able to see your progress over time. You'll be able to see, okay, my heart rate variability has improved, and that is time and time again has been proven to be a very good indicator of health and resilience. If you have increased HRV, you're more resilient. If you have increased HRV, you're more immune to stress. It's proven, and yes, we certainly can incorporate these other technologies. Um, and these technologies are good in its own way, but I think ultimately it shouldn't interrupt or hamper the practice. I think the key thing is practice, practice, practice. Just like we all brush our teeth, ideally twice a day, one in the morning and right before going to bed. Uh, and I don't think about the when I'm brushing my teeth, I don't think about brushing my teeth, right? Like, of course, if I want to bring mindfulness into that practice, I would very much be involved with the act of brushing and be so one with the act of brushing. That would just be the most beautiful experience. And I have had such experiences, by the way, while brushing, and they're fantastic. So recommend doing that, especially when you're taking a shower and you're brushing your teeth at the same time. It's phenomenal. But on a side, yeah, what if you could carry around this sense of profound awareness and mindfulness and peace and joy and vitality with you everywhere you go? And it's not effortful, it's effortless. How beautiful would that be? Not just for you, but for the people that you interact with. Because when you interact with people from a place of joy and peace and full awareness and full presence, they can sense it. Not cognitively, they can sense it energetically, and they know it, and they feel good. They feel that you're enveloping them in your energetic spirit. And imagine if more people did that around us. How you know how amazing would that feeling be? And I think that's the part that gets me excited, is if we can get more people to engage with each other with kindness, with mindfulness, with curiosity, then their threat meters within their mind body will not be activated all the time. you'll feel safe because that person embodies that sense of peace and trust. And I think that's what we need to, that's why it's important to practice. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, Stassi.
Yes, it does. So you consider thinking or taking something from neurofeedback. I'm asking because I have ever put, I mean, I've tried once to use a headset, VR headset, but my kids are doing it. And the only more information I have is from what I read or from the film of Spielberg, Ready Player One or something.
Yes,
So
yes.
what I was thinking about the how mindfulness can have, like, I'm trying to imagine it, and it's really, if you say that it's to attract people to make their practicing regular in an easier way, and so make it more like brushing their teeth and make it a habit, to be more attractive for them, easier, more not that difficult the way for some people now it is. Then I was thinking, then if this can create as well attachment, like craving as well, and how you creating this product can guarantee that I would go and really brush my teeth and not imagine that I brush my teeth, and in reality I don't brush my teeth actually.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. How do we actually get people to learn these skill sets in this controlled setting, and then take it out into the real world and apply it in their lives? Um, we have seen time and time again, when you put people through a simulation of some sort, they are almost always better at the real thing. A very simple example is flight simulators. Pilots go through it all the time. They are simulating the experience of flying, and they go through thousands of hours of training on the simulator. And when they fly the real thing, their muscle memory is right there where they need it. It's very similar to that. We just want to help people, go into this simulation, because the simulation will, in my opinion at least, will never get to, at least not soon, maybe the next 50 years, yes. I don't think the simulations will get to a point where it can replace the real world. We're not there yet. And like I said, we may not be there until a few decades, away. But believe it or not, this is happening. Yeah, we'll have another full chat about that. But yeah, yeah. So basically simulate, what it means to be kind, and allow them to feel it in that simulation. Maybe as one of the situations or scenarios we can even do in VR is, you're waiting in line at the grocery store, and you maybe practice a random act of kindness at the grocery store for somebody behind you at the checkout line, and you simulate that in VR, right? Um, people are more likely to do that in the real world if they, do this in the simulation. So I think that, yeah, that's how we see it, as.
Yeah, that's great. The word simulation I find is the key. And when you were talking about the fear of death, it's exactly the fear of flying is related to that in therapy as well. And I've had this, and I was watching another film. I think it was French Kiss or something, and there somebody was treated of that fear of flying through a simulation on a real, like, you imagine that you're in a real plane. So yeah, if that is the product that you're thinking and program, VR, it's I guess it's a way to simulate different realities in which people can really practice daily informal mindfulness. So that's what it is, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Because we would
Thank you.
never want people to just use the VR for the sake of using the VR. If the skills that they're developing in VR are not transferable in real life, we wouldn't do what we're doing. We want them to transfer the skills that they learn in VR into real life. Um, and I have seen the benefit of this myself. And again, it comes down to practice. When you practice consistently and commit to the practice of mindfulness, of kindness, of curiosity, and these are the three tenets that I always carry with me, then you're more likely to embody that in the real world. And people notice it. People notice when you give them full presence, when you're not distracted.
Thank you for that. Do you engage, I don't know, script writers and people who can do all these?
Yeah. So we have script writers, uh, musicians, visual artists, uh, psychologists, and every experience we put out there goes through a lot of different phases. So because we want to make sure that it actually really resonates, right? Now, sure, there are always going to be some experiences that are simple. And I use the word simple in quotes because they're never simple. Something as simple as breath work, right? Like just getting people to sit for 5 minutes and practice just some relaxing deep breaths, just to regulate the nervous system a little bit. Those are simple things you can do. Um, but when you want to create a scenario where you want to, let's say, heal somebody's deep rooted traumas about a certain topic, that requires a lot of design and effort and thinking and planning and testing, because we don't want to just put something out there hoping that this will just work, right? So we work with therapists to make sure that the protocols that we put into place and the design we put into place actually is meant to genuinely make a difference.
Sorry. Thank you, Stasi, for your question. I see Kasi again. Would you like to share your question?
I have some reflections and question. One reflection is that I think the thing with using a tool and having it as a tool, or using a tool and becoming addicted, it's a big question. I have a podcast with sleep stories, and actually I'm always thinking, if it is helping people, can they get addicted to listening to my stories because they had problems with sleep before, but now they are sleeping well? But I don't want to put them in a situation when they cannot fall asleep without listening to our stories. So, and I'm sure you have researchers, you have psychologists, but I'm sure that it will come back, this question. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. That was
Yeah,
fun. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the ways we are wanting to design our experiences in a way that that starts out with people using VR with their eyes open, because with VR you have to keep your eyes open, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then slowly, as they progress through the journey, we can turn off the screen of the headset so it's completely dark,
Mm.
and we can do these type of settings. So the idea here is that we can, every now and then, we will give the user a full open eye experience, but then every now and then we will just have a session where they're just absolutely without any stimulation, no visual, no audio, and
Okay.
all we do is just stay here, just be here with your breath with your thoughts,
Mm.
and we
Mm.
won't do anything for a few minutes.
Mm.
And then we kind of just slowly re-engage them, So the idea here is to make sure that they get the workout, not just with the full VR, but they also get the workout without the VR. Because yeah,
Mhm.
you're right, absolutely. At the end of the day, like I said, we want them to apply these practices without having to use the headset all day long, right? Like
Mm.
we don't want to create dependency, because then what is the difference between us and pharma companies?
Yes, exactly.
We don't want to do that. It's like this, right? Exercise, for example. Um, I used to have a gym membership in the past, and many years ago, I had a trainer, and I needed that at that time. Uh, Over time, my need for movement and exercise and healthy behaviors through movement has become so intrinsic that I just do it myself now. I don't need anybody. I don't need a tool. I just have my,
Mm.
either I go for runs or I have a pair of weights. And I don't even have any equipment. I just have a pair of weights, and I just need a yoga mat with a pair of weights,
Mm.
and that's it. And sometimes when I don't have my pair of weights, I grab these two big bottles of water, and just,
Mhm.
so I think the idea here is that we know for a fact that people, when they make anything intrinsic, it just, it's not something that you do because you should be doing it. You do because you want to do it. So I
Yes.
think that's what we want to enable
Mm.
uh, for people is certain practices, like the formal practice of meditation or mindfulness, is
Mhm.
something that they would want to do. You know,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mm. Um, I like this solution that you showed, this stepping down from
yeah,
full use to. Another thing, and I think that I can give this example as an opposition to your tool, because when you describe how it works, it has a lot of spiritual content. For example, this kindness that you gave. Because for 20 years ago, before any apps, actually, I went to a neurofeedback training. So I had all those electrodes, on my head. I was
yeah,
connected to equipment, and I could steer with my brain the visual,
yeah,
and in this way my brain was conditioned to create a certain visual which only appeared if I was both focused and relaxed, which is like meditative state almost.
yeah,
And my experience was that I was focused and relaxed, and those sessions were helpful when they lasted,
yes,
but I was not joyful. I was not peaceful. I was not full of kindness. So it was completely different thing actually.
yeah,
Hmm. And the last thing, I agree that when it's boiled down, it comes to death, our fears. But another fear, I think, especially when I'm thinking of coming generations and much more advanced technologies than we have right now, is fear of losing meaning,
yes,
losing meaning. And I think it
absolutely,
would be actually quite powerful fear in many of us. Mm.
absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because we ask ourselves these questions all the time, right? What does it mean to be human? What is the meaning of life? What are we here for? What am I here for? What is all of us as society here for? And you can slice that conversation in so many ways. One of the perspectives I recently shared with my wife on a hike is humans fundamentally believe that we're the only human species on this massive universe, right? And yeah, from a human perspective, we may be, but we may not be, right? We don't know that yet. But there's all countless other species, right? Animals, insects, etc., etc. When you're going on a hike and you're walking on the streets or in the forest, are you actively thinking about the countless millions of, potentially millions of lives of ants or whoever, entire civilization of ants that you might be stepping onto on your hike? Are you consciously actively thinking about that? Probably not. And so I think, so the question I put forward to my wife in that moment was, and this is a pretty interesting conversation, I can tell you that for sure. What if there's some other entity out there and we are the ants for them, you know, where just like how I don't actively think about ants when I'm walking on the road. I don't think about their lives. I don't think about the suffering that they're going through. Just like that, there might be some entity out there that is not really thinking about our suffering. So that's just a perspective. It's a thought exercise. We don't know and never be able to prove it. But yeah, I think meaning is very important. And I think I truly think that if you can get people to find meaning in connection to not just each other, but our true connection to what I call, I use the term hara a lot, Hara. And what I mean by this is there's this grand spaciousness. That's what I call hara, that exists. Everything has such immense amounts of space in it. For example, if I take this pen, which is a regular pen, and if I put this under an electron microscope, if I zoom in 1,000 times over, I will see more space than pen. And then I zoom back out, I only see the pen. So I do believe that there is this grand spaciousness that exists out there. And we are all part of this grand spaciousness. And this grand spaciousness, the contents of it exists within us as well. And that is the connection. What I'm talking about is definitely connection to other beings is important. Not saying it's not, but I think our connection to this larger consciousness and recognizing our true essence, in my opinion, is more important. And that, once you get a taste of that, once you get to understand that unity that happens with this grand consciousness, you find meaning. At least that's what I've observed. You find meaning. And I have found my own version of meaning, right? And it's everybody might find it different, but I have my own meaning. And I think I completely agree. I think not having purpose and meaning and the fear of not having that is just as same pretty much level as the fear of death.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, insightful. If you haven't read the others, I can recommend a book of Donald Hoffman, The Case Against Reality. And actually, when you mentioned this bigger spaciousness, which is conscious, that reminds me about the book. Thank you very much.
What was that book called again? I will make
The
note
Case
of that.
Against Reality.
Add it to my list.
Donald Hoffman, yes. And thank you very much, Sid.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for the contribution. We have still maybe 10 minutes or 8 minutes left. I don't know if there is another question or sharing.
If not, I just want to share something, just a perspective. I've met a lot of people and I continue meeting a lot of people, and everybody has a perspective. And I have come to terms with the fact that there is no wrong perspective. All perspectives are valid perspectives because you don't know what the context is of that person. So I think as humans, it is our job to be good stewards of taking in all these perspectives, uh, and maybe not understanding them, but being okay with them existing. Because when we point out a perspective as, "Ooh, that is wrong," suddenly you're judging a perspective or judging and somebody's um, how somebody thinks, and I think that that takes you out of just being truly accepting of everything and anything. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's when you're mindful, or at least on the path of being mindful, can be a very challenging thing to do, because most people, I know this for a fact, and a lot of my family and a lot of my friends circle, they always want people to lean one way or the other. What, do you like this or you don't like this? I'm like, can we find a middle path where I don't have to necessarily like it, or I don't have to necessarily not like it, you know, because that's ambiguous, and people don't like things. People like certainty. People like you fitting in a bucket, fitting in a pattern. And so if you don't belong to a bucket or a pattern, they consider you to be an anomaly. But I think we need more people in the middle. So, but that's just my thoughts. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And by the way, I would like to share that this idea with the ants. I was in a retreat with Gregory Kramer, and I think at day 8, I refused myself to go for mindful walking because I was thinking about how many ants I was killing while walking on the grass. And we're just walking, on the paved street, which was, by the way, probably built and killed a lot of other creatures. So it's impossible. At a certain point, I give up. It's just impossible. And coming, finding peace in the fact that this is the nature of things. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's quite complex. It's
very complex. And I think your job is not to understand the complexity. And by you, I mean not you, but all of us. Our job is not to understand every piece of the complexity. I think our jobs are just to be kind at toward everything, right? If I had the thought, for example, that, oh, I might be killing some ant species while on my walk, maybe if I had that thought, I could just stay still for a moment and just bring the most pure awareness to that moment, and maybe just touch the ground and just say, thank you. And I've done that. I've literally just touched the ground and just said, just thank you. And that sense of connection, and it felt nice, because I reciprocated. I think there's something that I didn't understand with gratitude, and yeah, that's how I try to navigate these complexities.
Thank you so much, Katerina, please.
There are, by the way, spiritual traditions that walk with a broom in front of them. And the other take I have on this is when you step on an ant, I mean, everything is circular. It is eaten by another animal, and it brings new life to that animal. So there's a meaning in everything. On another note, I want to thank you for talking about this alternating a technique where you make the screen blank, because you've answered my question whether alternating with VR and without VR would make like if a pilot would do the simulation and the next day go into a real plane, it could intensify the learning and also bring the real life experience closer. But there's another question that I would like to touch on, because when we decided on this meeting, one of the important things was that you said that your technology would also help to give access to mindfulness and yoga to people who don't have access. And I don't know whether you touched on that before I was here, but that really struck me. And that is something that in EAMBA we are very keen on in order to support diversity. So did you touch on this or?
No, but I'm
No?
happy to elaborate.
Can we go into that? Because that's very important to include more people and give more access to people who don't have access.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I can definitely touch on that. I think access is important, but when you just provide access and when what you deliver is not engaging, then you're effectively restricting access, because you might be opening the door, but you're not giving them, the right food for thought. Then it doesn't work. So I think one of the themes that when we were all part of the webinar with John Kabat-Zinn, which was so many hundreds of people attending, the theme was that there's a lot of people are struggling to get mindfulness practitioners are struggling to get clients, right? That's just the general theme was that a lot of people are just like, yeah, people are not interested in mindfulness. People are interested in, other things and that. And I think that's part of the conversation as well. I think access has many sides to it. And one of the ways we think we can improve access is by creating more engaging interventions and by providing these devices and the technology and the software for institutions that, such as EAMBA, who are forerunners, right, of providing more people with access to mindfulness. So I think one of the things we are wanting to do is work with local towns and government institutions and schools and libraries and nonprofits to have a lot of these technology available at these centers so that people can go to these centers in their own community and maybe loan one out as a library book, for example, to go through a program, right? Or attend a session that's hosted by a local library, right? So I think those are different sort of initiatives that we want to embark on. We're not quite there yet, but I think it's certainly on our roadmap to work with local institutions to improve not just the actual physical access to the device, but also how do we create not just better access to the device itself, but also better access to the actual content that's being delivered through the device, and make it more palatable, make it more engaging, and make sure that there are enough teachers trained out there on potentially how to even conduct these sessions or facilitate these sessions through VR, right? Because I think we've always said this in the mental well-being space. We say this, that our job, we're not replacing therapists, we're augmenting their capacities. And similarly here, we're not replacing mindfulness practitioners, we're just augmenting their toolkit. We're just giving them an option to enhance their practice, not their practice necessarily, but their ability to get more people to practice this. So I don't know if that answered your question, Kathleen.
Yeah, the main theme was the gap between the rising health issues, while at the same time the request to have mindfulness training was decreasing. But you did answer my question because you brought it to an institutional level that, for example, libraries and schools could run that. And maybe on that note, you could think about the possibility we support a project in Croatia, Mindful Cities and Counties, where we also have the mayors and the public servants, the civil servants involved in the work. And that could be an experiment to see whether that could work. Because in this case, we have an economic situation where what we say, if people don't have access to it because of economical reasons or because they are in remote areas, well, we have it there. And we also have the support of authorities who could make it happen through schools, through the community council, or through the civil servants.
Mm. Yeah,
And
no,
maybe
that's
that would be an experiment that would also contribute to insights that you have at your company,
yeah.
by looking whether we could incorporate that. The project now has 3 phases, and we are thinking about a 4th phase. So
Okay.
this could be a 4th phase.
Absolutely. Yeah, happy to definitely chat more about that. I think especially for remote locations, it's not easy to have a facilitator sometimes. So I think in some cases it's better to have a self-administered model to train people, but not through 2D videos, because I think we all know that, and I myself included, we've all bought courses and not used them, right? Through so many course platforms.
Not the
There's a
people who are
reason.
here. Not the people who are here. No, not really. What, Teresa? No, Stasi's just laughing. You're the only one.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, Catherine, you and the community that you represent are living and breathing this all day long. But I think there's a lot of people out there who just buy a lot of courses and around not just mindfulness, many other
Yeah,
different
sure.
topic areas, and
Yeah.
they just, there's no accountability, there's no support, there's no engagement.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, because now people are paying sometimes $200-300 for a course, and they're not using it, not applying it.
Well, Magdalena is here. She's from Croatia, and she's involved in that project. In Croatia, we also have that situation where we don't have enough teachers to do the whole project, and so it would, the word that you were using, augmenting the possibilities and the opportunities of teachers, would also apply in that case, because then the teachers would have a tool, and it could be financed through the communities and through the mayors, in order to have a much wider impact than the available teachers could do.
Yeah.
And then it could grow from there. I mean, this is really, it could be a groundbreaking project if we could also test your approach there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think we definitely should talk about that.
Have you done something like that before with the community and the council and the mayors involved, or only with? I know you said you did it with companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've not done it with counties or cities or governments yet. We did actually have a chat with the since I'm in Boston, we did have a chat with the city of Boston, and they're wanting to implement something for their employees, because their employees are struggling with stress and burnout, and they're looking at ways to improve their resilience. But we haven't gotten far yet. It's a little bit slow, but we are working with hospitals right now. That's our first sort of audience that we're focused on, and that's what we're, hospital systems and institutions are who we're working with right now, to deploy these.
Great. I thank you very much. I wasn't here all the time, but what I heard is it was very concrete, but also you went out in orbit. So we did the whole journey, and I'm very grateful you are here. And please accept my apologies for being late.
No, not at all. And yeah, I hope I wasn't too much out there in the orbit.
No, not
and
at
I was
all.
able to make sense.
Just travel back and forth.
Yeah, I'm aware of time and in respect of everybody. Yeah, maybe schedule. Yeah, maybe we can close unless there is something burning that needs to be shared.
No, I just want to say
Yes.
thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me, and thank you for staying this late in the evening for everybody. So
Thank you so much.
yeah.
So we close maybe with a couple of deep breaths all together, touching the ground, which is connecting all of us in different parts of the planet. Maybe allowing a gentle breath. So again, expressing gratitude for this time we share together and for the opportunity to be nourished by our collective wisdom. Thank you so much, Sid, and everybody. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Very much. Bye.